Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Joni Young and I'm going to show you step by step exactly how to paint this landscape today. So if you'd like to learn this step by step, then stay tuned. Okay, we're going to begin this one on an 11 by 14 canvas. I primed it once with white gesso. I let it dry. I'm just taking out my titanium white paint that I like to use in all of my paintings, just to show you guys what brand it is. It's Liquitex Basics Acrylics. You're going to need a large blending brush, and this is just one that I'm choosing, but it really doesn't matter. You can use any one that you want. I've also got some neon colors I'm using today. I'm starting off with my neon yellow, and this is by Holbein. This is a neon yellow cool. And I'm just going to take this large number 50 Filbert blending brush with my white and my yellow and just blend it around the entire canvas. Now, if you're having trouble blending your paint out, you can pick up just a little bit of water to help pull that paint out of your brush and blend it along. Okay, now without letting the canvas dry, I'm going to use a little bit of neon orange. I'll squeeze out a little dot in the top corners and then take my paintbrush that still has a bit of yellow and white mixture in it and start blending that around, just having fun with my brush, creating little swirls and wavy lines. This is just for the background. We want to create this peachy glow and have some streaks showing, so you have a little bit of the yellow and this peachy color. You don't want to cover up the entire canvas, you want a little bit of each. Okay, I'm now going to take a little bit of white and just incorporate that into that neon orange, a little bit of the yellow there. And if your paint is all dry underneath, don't worry, that's okay. You can still overlap the colors and they'll look the same. Don't worry at all. So my paint is actually drying quite quickly today, and I need to use a little bit of water here and there. So for our next step, I've got phthalo blue, titanium white, an oval brush by Princeton. This is sort of like a mop brush, but it's an oval. And if you don't have this, you can use any brush you want to create your foliage, such as a fan brush, a filbert brush, or any stipple brush. So starting on the left corner, I'm going to start tapping in from the outside of the canvas towards the inside. This way I get it darker on the outside and it'll naturally get lighter as it gets towards the center. And that's really what we want. We want to create that gradation and draw our eyes into the center, making it softer and lighter and more inviting. Now here and there, I'm going to pick up a little bit more white, creating different tones for my trees and my bushes. So some areas will be like a frostier looking blue, mostly towards the center, leaving the outside, like I said earlier, the darker blue. I'm going to pull and sweep with my brush with the excess paint that's left in my brush to create some softer tones and shadows here, and create on either side of the water. We've got a little creek or a river running through this landscape. And as you can see here, I'm tapping softly with just a little bit of white on my brush. My brush is pretty dry at this point. I'm just going to create the outline for this composition, and this is just a little old-fashioned looking stone bridge. So just a long arch, a few arch lines, and then back over. Just going to kind of scumble around with my brush just to build up the background layers for our foliage and our trees before we add our lamppost later on. So now picking up a little bit of white along with the blue that's left over in my brush, I can just tap and create all these softer tones. So we're just going to build up that variation of light and dark and have a nice gradual, like I said, gradation from dark to light or light to dark. Just really important when you have a lot of contrast and shadows in your painting. It's nice to have those in between, not so completely dark and not completely bright or highlighted. You want to have the mid-tones in there, your mid-shadows and highlights. So I'm going to continue along using this awesome, I really love this brush. I'm getting more of the Princeton series oval brush, and it just creates the most beautiful looking foliage. The brush really does the work for you. It's effortless with this brush. And I'm just swirling around, getting a nice mixture, very soft pastel tone in here. I'm going to come along just using the tip of my brush, the end of my brush, side to side, creating little taps here for the edge of my little river or my creek. And I'm going to be building that up, as you'll see as the video and painting progress. I'm going to be building up with some beautiful flowers, and this is a really informative video, so don't skip any of these steps. Don't skip through the video. You need all of these layers and all of these steps to build up the richness and the depth to get the end result of this painting. So we go from using some cool blue, and the end result is very warm and rich, and I want to show you guys exactly how you can achieve that one step at a time. And no matter what skill level you're at, you can all follow along. I'm breaking this down into all the steps for you guys. Now you'll notice every time I'm going back to load my brush, I'm going into the white, working out less of the blue in my brush. So I'm focusing on not washing my brush out. I don't want to completely get rid of all of the blue in my brush. I just want to create one shade lighter each time I do this. See how it's darker on the outside and it's getting lighter as we get towards the center. And I want to pull a few little lines just right underneath the foliage on either side of the river for some ripples and little shadows in the water. And then just pulling a little bit more white. I've got the tiniest bit of blue left in my brush, so we've got this really beautiful smoky, almost like a light blue violet or light ultramarine blue shade that looks really complementary with that neon orange that we made into a soft peach tone. Picking up a little bit of my neon yellow now with white and a little bit of blue. I've got a bright, cheerful green tone that I'm going to go over and add a little hint of this here and there, where we're going to have our little path and where our lamppost is going to be. This is important to build up the layers. We need this touch of green in here, of course, because it's so complementary with all the red that we're going to be using in the pink. Now feel free to add less than this or more if you want. More green, the more complementary, and that red will pop out later on. But if you just want to keep it more on the red side and the pink tone, that's fine as well. It'll look nice either way, but just letting you guys know that if you add a little bit more green, you won't ruin the painting. It'll still look really pretty. I'm just taking a little bit more white to that yellow now and creating some softer tones that when we filter over with other colors, they'll be a little bit brighter because we have this extra little bit of white underneath. I'm going to kind of dust around now with the excess paint on my brush and just soften a little bit more. As the paint dries, it's going to get a little bit darker. Okay, I've got some neon orange now along with my neon yellow and white. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this color for a highlight on the top of the bridge and add some in the water because I don't really have any of that sky peachy color, and I need that because I like to add all the colors above in the water. The water is very reflective. It's like a mirror of what's going on around it. So it's important to not leave that out. And then I'm just going to go side to side, soft little sweeps back and forth along where we're going to have a little path. So still using my little mop brush here, this oval brush, I'm just going to add the last little bit of peach in the water and around the side and the edges of the river. And then I'm going to, without washing my brush, make a really dark color that I'll show you right now. The phthalo blue, the orange, tap and blend both of those colors together and then push for the paint to load up on the end of the brush. I'm going to pull and drag, creating my dark shadows and some more contrast on the bridge, making it a little bit wider at the base of the bridge and then skinnier right underneath the bridge. sort of in the middle section. And you can definitely use a smaller brush for this if you want. Later on, I'm going to switch over to my small flat brush. But I'm going to be using this brush to create some foliage as well. So I just want to keep using this. And because it's round on the end, it's very helpful when you're working on something round, such as the shape of this bridge. I'm now going to tap, tap, tap on either side to build up the shadow, all the shadows for the foliage, and a few little lines and ripples in the water. So you can tap, and then whenever you want to have a little bit of a reflection in the water, so right underneath the base on either side of the bridge, you can see how I just kind of pulled and flicked straight down very gently, just short, quick little strokes. And now I'm going to come in on the side and start building up some more shadow and depth using those same colors, the phthalo blue and the neon orange. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to my small flat brush just to tidy this area up a little bit. I've got it a little bit damp, so just the smallest amount of water in my brush, just so that I'm able to blend this paint out that's drying quite quickly. We know acrylic paint dries fast, don't we guys? So water is our friend. Unless you want to use a slow drying medium, you can add a slow drying medium to your acrylics. I just like using a little bit of water. I feel like I have more control over how long it takes to dry and stay wet with water, but when you're using a slow drying medium, it decides when it wants to dry, and that could be hours and hours, which can be a little bit frustrating. So here I'm just pulling with a little bit of that loosened paint, a bit of water on my brush still, just pulling and blending in, filling in all these little dry gaps that are left there from the top of the canvas. You can sometimes see the canvas through there. So you want to get in there with either a little bit more paint or some water to help fill all those little spaces in. And I sort of added a little bit of a scoop for a mirror reflection, just very subtle for the bridge. And then I'm going to go along the top and create that shadow for the inside wall of the bridge. And then just a little line here, just sort of outline, just define it a little bit more, make it look like it's in front of the background. I'm going to just keep taking this brush with a little bit of water and the paint that's left over in my brush and do a few little branches, just a few little lines for some branches that we're going to come in and add some foliage and treetops to later on with one of my mop brushes that I really like using. So we'll do a couple more here on this side. And I'm just taking a little bit of that peachy color, and I want to add another bit of a glow and highlight to the top of the walls on either side here, and then just soften the tone up a little bit inside of the main part of the bridge here on the outside wall. So it's kind of mixing in a little bit with that light blue, that neon orange, white, and light blue. So I'm going to switch over to neon pink now and my large Filbert brush. Got a little bit of water in my brush, and I made sure that my canvas, the paint was all dry before doing this. If yours is still wet, just take a hairdryer or take a few moments to wait until it's completely dry. This is just a filter that we're adding over, so just with that neon pink, if you have a little bit of neon orange, you can add that as well. Concentrating on the outer edges of the canvas and then coming in with a little bit that's left over in my brush and just kind of dusting it over, adding a little bit to the water, the path, a little bit inside of the sky here in the middle of the canvas. And you can always just take it off or paint over it if you feel like you've gone too far and added too much, but I think it's really pretty. It just builds up that intensity and that nice warm glow that we want in this painting. So now I'm going to come over top of these dark bushes with my neon pink, a little bit of neon red later on I'll be adding. So all my neon colors that I'm using are Luminous by Holbein. They're neon heavy bodied neon acrylics, and they're really lovely paints to use. I know a lot of you guys that are watching and painting along with me right now have these already. You know how awesome they are. You can use any neon colors or any neon paints that you have, and if you don't have any neon paints, just use any pink, any magenta, any bright crimson red, even scarlet red, cadmium red. It won't be quite the same, but it's still going to be really pretty. So I'm just enhancing the color now and the saturation by tapping over with my neon pink. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be adding neon red as well. And all of my neons, they're all from the same company and brand. And you can find them on Amazon and certain fine art stores. So here's my luminous red. And I've got my tiny little mop brush now that I'm using. I'm going to tap a little bit of the red and the pink together. And I just have more control when painting a little small space like this. It makes it nice and neat and tidier looking. And I'm going to have some, maybe some beautiful rose bushes along the riverside here. And it's just whatever you want it to be. You're creating your fantasy worlds, your dreamy worlds that you'd love to just jump into and get away to. So you use the colors that you want and make the flowers that you want. Create your own world. I really, really love roses, so I like to fill my paintings up with roses, and hydrangeas actually are another one of my favorites. So I'm just going to add these, tapping them wherever I want, and then again incorporating a little bit of that color into the water. Every color that I add, I want to add to the water. Okay, I'm going to brush over a little bit more over top of the blue and the sky, and you can see how that color builds up so nicely. Okay, I've got a larger mop brush now, and I'm taking my pink, red, and phthalo blue, just pushing on the bottom portion of my brush, as you can see, and this is going to make some really neat shapes for my foliage. So you can see here, I'll try to zoom in and get a little bit closer for you guys to see. Just light little taps. Doesn't that look cool? So using different brushes in your paintings when you're working on a landscape is pretty important for creating some different looking plants and trees. It all builds up and adds more character into your landscapes, but if you don't have a lot of brushes, you can use one or two brushes in a few different ways to make it look like you've got a whole bunch of different brushes. And I will be doing a video soon on that, how to use a fan brush for different things, and same with a mop brush and a filbert brush. So stay tuned for that, guys. And I'm just going to keep going around wherever I want to have some more shadow and just tapping in lightly. The shadows are going to really help balance out all the soft tones that we have going on. Everything's just going to kind of work in harmony and complement one another. So that's what you're really out to try to achieve in a painting when you've got lots of colors, especially, and light and shadow. You want everything to just work really well together. Okay, I've got my luminous rose now, another neon. And if you don't have this, quinacridone violet or magenta is very close, so you can use either one of those. I've got a small fan brush here, though you can use any fan brush of your choice, or a filbert brush as well to create just a little bit more foliage down here. I just want to bring in another tone into this painting. This is more towards the shadow area, so it's a cooler, it's still like a warm color, but it's cooler. It's has a bit of a blue into it, so this is going to look really pretty down here in this bottom left corner. I'm just taking straight luminous rose, but now I'm taking a little bit of white to create a few shades lighter of that, so like a pastel. And I'm going to add this and enhance and just add a little bit of depth here. So you can see I'm just going to tap lightly, kind of focusing on the end of my brush, the tip of my brush for where I want to apply that pressure. I'll add a little bit in the water on either side and even at the base of the bridge. Okay, now with my little flat brush again, I'm going to kind of take all these colors, just make sort of a muddy tone here using all the colors. And I'm going to start adding a little suggestion of a path that leads over to the bridge. So just a rough beaten path here with lots of foliage on either side. Just a suggestion that we have something here that leads us around the corner from the lamppost and then towards that bridge that's so inviting. I wonder where it leads. Maybe I'll do another painting after this that's like a part 2 to this painting. After cleaning my brush out, I'm taking full on straight neon yellow and I'm going to brush over like a filter again and enhance all the layers of colors that we have underneath this. And then you'll see what I do next, which is really interesting. It's another technique that can be really, really beneficial in a painting. And it's kind of a hack that not a lot of painters talk about or share. It can be really powerful in a painting and create some instant highlights. So I'll show you that in just a second. I'm just going to enhance a few other areas here and go over with this luminous yellow. And this is a cool luminous yellow. I've got a warm one as well, and I'll be using that a little bit later on towards the end. Okay, back over to my oval brush here, my oval mop stipply brush. I'm going to take all my colors, all my dark colors, no white here. So all the neons and the phthalo blue, and I'm just going to tap in another layer, enhancing again, building up the shadow in the foreground now. Not wanting to cover up everything underneath, so do this carefully. So just do a few light little taps at a time and then stop and kind of look at it and make sure you can still see all the colors. And I'm going to add a little bit to the base here of the bridge. And then I decided right here, wouldn't it be cool to have some foliage growing up, maybe some vines and maybe, I don't know, some wisteria, whatever flowers you want it to be. So I'll be adding that over top of part of the bridge. And before I do that, I just want to add a little dust here of just brushing back and forth with the leftover paint in my brush for some shadows and a little bit more of a grassy base here for our lamppost. So here, just with the tip of my brush, I'm just going to tap, tap, tap really lightly, and then I'll finish that off a little bit later. It's just a nice base that we've got right now, and I know that I want to carry that through with a little bit more. So I need a smaller brush here, and I just decided I would use my flat brush, but you could use a Filbert brush for sure, or even a round brush. But I like the way I can kind of just pull and create that hanging vine kind of weeping wisteria look to this bridge, and it kind of just gives it that romantic Monet kind of a look in a painting that I really, really love. So I'm just going to pull and just quickly do short little flicks, tapping and then pulling and dragging. Now if yours is not kind of blending out so easily like this, then you might need to get a little bit of water in your brush. Remember, it is far away, especially the foliage that's kind of hanging on the other side of the bridge. You want that to be softer looking, so use less paint for that side because it's farther away. It's on the other side, so we wouldn't see it as intensely as we do on the side that we're in front, that we're looking at, if that makes sense. So I'm going to enhance this with a little bit more green, the foliage on the bridge, and then I'll be coming in with the flowers that I add later on. But this part right here is what I really wanted to show you guys. And if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen me do this quite a few times in my paintings. So I've got water on my brush and I'm gently scrubbing off a few of the layers that we added. This is exposing the first layer that we painted the canvas with, and that was that luminous and yellow, the neon yellow and white. So look at that, how it just glows. And now we've got some a sunlit path. We've got some shadows in there as well, but we've got a nice bright highlight there. So instead of adding more paint, this is another option for you. This saves on paint too. So, and it's just kind of fun to do this. I really like this technique. It's satisfying to do this in a painting, and you can you'll get creative as you go and learn more techniques, and you'll incorporate that into different parts of your paintings, and you'll discover some really fun magical techniques and that you can add to your paintings. So try that one out sometime, guys. I'm going to come in now and start painting my lamppost, and I'm using just a little bit of white with my blue. You can paint your lamppost any color that you want. So just paint it any color that you want, and then add white for highlight to whatever color you're using, and then add a little bit of black for your shadows. So because I have sort of a dark background behind this, I needed to add a little bit of a lighter color first. And I'm just doing a few little lines in here for the glass around the lamppost where we're going to have the light inside. And I've got quite a few videos of lamppost paintings, so be sure to look through my playlists for those. You'll learn a lot each time you paint one, and they're kind of fun to add in a lot of different paintings. You can add them into fantasy paintings. I did one winter one where it kind of looks like Narnia, and like from the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then you can also have them in cityscapes. You can really add them into any painting, and it adds a lot of charm and character. So just highlighting over here with my white and my light blue base. And then I'm going to even add a few little hints of that luminous rose and white in there. Just picking up any pastel color that we've got going on in our palette would be a nice addition to this lamppost. Of course, we're going to keep it the brightest right here inside where the light is. So I'll do a thin white base first, and then I'll come in with my luminous yellow warm. And then if you don't have luminous yellow warm, then just use orange and yellow and white, and you can make almost that same color. Just going to soften the top, make it look sort of hazy and blurry. It'll just give it that sort of a glow. Now here I've just got a craft apple barrel or Americana black paint that I'm using. You don't necessarily need a heavy bodied one. A little bit of black goes a long way, and wherever I have those highlights and those lines underneath, I'm going to do that black line for a shadow, and then on either side of the lamppost as well. So I'm going to come in with the lines for the main part of the lamp, a thicker black line there, a line here on the edge. So they go on a slant towards the base. So they'll be a little bit diagonal, and then I'll do a thicker, just a slightly thicker black line here on the very top. a little dot and then pull down. Now I'm going to balance that out a little bit because I took it a little bit too far over to the right, and I'll show you exactly how you can fix that if you do the same thing. And I'll add a little bit of black here for the top of the lamppost. I'm just balancing everything out. So if I've made my black lines a little bit too thick, then I'm going to go back in and balance my highlights and the shapes, as well as everything else, color tone. And so right here, where I mentioned that I took that line over a little bit too far, I'm just going to go inside of it and add a little bit more highlights here. Like I said, I just want to balance out these little lines. You can paint your lamppost however you want. There's so many different fun and whimsical ways you can give your lamppost character and really make it your own. So just going inside the main part of the lamppost and just pulling down, adding a little bit more white to my brush. Just adding the last little bit of highlights and shadows here, and then I'm going to come down to the base and add some foliage. This kind of hides the bottom of the lamppost that we're not always sure what to do with, and you know, we don't want it to look like we kind of just stuck it on there. We want it to look like it's been there for a while and it's got a lot of flowers and foliage kind of growing around it and wrapping around. I kind of like that look, so that's what I'm going to go with here and just start tapping in. I've got actually some sap green here. Now you can use sap green, you can use hooker's green, or you can just take your yellow and black. Yellow and black make a nice earthy green color. I'm also going to do another layer here for my light, just taking a bit of white paint, carefully going inside here. Got a micro mini little liner brush. Now you can use any small brush that you have if you don't have one this small. Now I've got my luminous yellow warm, so it's like a really light gold, beautiful warm gold color. I'm taking a little bit of white with it just to make sure that it really glows once it dries and it's nice and bright. And I want to really try to capture the warmth and that light feeling that you get. You know, a lamppost, there's something about it that feels comforting and hopeful. So I want to create that with color and balance in the light that I'm adding to it. So when I say light, I mean white. You want to just tint your white with that beautiful golden luminous yellow warm color. I'm going to add some down at the bottom. I'm going to start building up the foliage and my flowers down here. I will be taking a scoop of neon red and a scoop of the warm neon yellow, and not blending them up on the palette. I'm just going to tap with my brush and you'll see how pretty that looks and how natural it looks when you do that. I think the hardest thing to learn as an artist when you're learning how to paint is to not overblend. We always, when we're just starting to paint, we tend to overblend and overwork things and go over things too much. So less is more, and you'll get to that ease and that comfort and confidence the more you paint. I think the best advice I can give you guys is to just paint every day. Even if you don't feel like it, try to do something. We don't always feel like we want to do something, but you know what happens when we start? We end up finding that we're enjoying ourselves, and we're so glad that we did. So I'm just going to add another layer of highlights in here. Give this sort of a light gray look. Now you can make it gray, or you can use a little bit of the phthalo blue and white for your lamppost. Again, you can make it any color that you want. I've just got a little bit of white in my brush. I'm going to scoop up that neon red with a bit of white and start tapping in for my flowers. And then I'm going to take white with my luminous yellow and create a nice glow coming from cascading down here from the lamp, the light from the lamppost. Just adding, enhancing the areas down here that I just imagine that light would be hitting down below. So a little bit on the flowers, a bit on the path, just using my finger to soften and blend that out a little bit. And then I'm going to go back in with a little bit more white. And fix this area right here that I kind of lost when I brought that black line down over a bit too far. So I want to make that a little bit more square on the bottom, give it a little bit more area. Now with red, white on my brush, I'm going to tap in for my beautiful roses. So just little taps. We're not painting little flower petals one at a time. This is far away. This is just impressionistic painting technique here we're doing, and it's very effective. It really gives that illusion of flowers. So just using the right size brush, the right amount of paint, and I've got quite a bit of paint on the tip of my brush. I'm not blending it again. I'm not mixing this color up on my palette. I'm taking a little dab of neon red, sometimes a little bit of white, and the neon luminous yellow warm. I'm going to continue to do that along either side of the river and again at the base of the lamppost. So just tapping a little bit over top of that luminous rose now that's dried into a darker, more of like a wine colored, purpley color. And now with a clean flat brush, getting that golden mixture again, the white and the luminous yellow warm, I'm going to add the finishing touches to either side here for my little light on my path coming from my little lamppost. I had so much fun painting this today and showing you guys how to. Be sure to post your versions of this painting, share yours on our Facebook group. I'll leave a link below for that. And for early access, extra videos, advice, giveaways, a whole bunch of other great perks, join Patreon. I'll leave a link below for that too. Thanks so much for all of your support. I appreciate each and every one of you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. I can't thank you enough. Happy painting, and I'll see you next time, everybody. Bye!